And we are recording. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Your Personal Record. This episode is number 12. And last week I ran out of fingers. I'm not going to ask my guest to assist on this one. You're just going to have to take my word for it when I say episode 12. And today I have got a very, very, very special guest. Not only is he a guest, but he's also a family member. And what are the chances of that? Now, this is going to be a bit of an introduction over here. So he's my brother-in-law. I've known him for, probably certainly more than half my life, since high school. He is considered to be, and I don't mean like it's not a self-imposed in a self-imposed title. He is considered to be one of the foremost Yardbirds experts and collectors in the entire world. And I mean that we're just going to spend the next hour, certainly a large chunk of it, talking about the Yardbirds. We're not going to reminisce about high school too much, but it might pop up at some point. But friends, welcome to Your Personal Record. My brother-in-law, Yardbirds expert, Ben Silverberg. Ben, yo.
Hey, that's great introduction. Thank you. That's really wonderful. I think that it's such a weird thing that for all of our history to be coming to this day here to talk about vinyl is great. I mean, the stories that we could tell, not about Yardbirds, in our quest to find vinyl all across, the East Coast of the United States, lots of great memories, lots of great times doing that.
Well, here's a quote, and let's see if you can remember where this quote was from. Records, here we come.
Records, here we come was from a trip up through Rhode Island into Boston, from which I have one of my fondest memories of getting pulled over while listening to Black Sabbath, War Pigs, and the cop who stepped into the highway and literally pulled my rear over.
Got a finger right in your face.
Right in my face with the shades and all. Anyway, that was a trip that was probably 80% records and 20% whale watching.
I might even go 90-10 on that.
Yeah, maybe, right? And so you and I, we hit the next record destination and just book, because it's elbows up, it's every man for himself. And
and I mean, at that time, the only thing that we were looking for that would have been a conflict was Jane's Addiction.
Correct. It would have been Jane's Addiction. I would. There might have been. Was there one other? Maybe not. Maybe it was just Jane's. Yeah. I mean, of course, I've always been looking for Yardbirds. I peek at some of the Hendrix or Doors or some of the other bands or whatnot, but it's always been Yardbirds, and at that time it was James, right?
But also Zeppelin, or is that considered? Do you consider that part of Yardbirds?
Yeah, to me that's all part of that whole family of Yardbirds, Zeppelin, Terry Reid, Jeff Beck solo, that sort of ecosystem, Renaissance, Illusion, Armageddon, all of that whole, all the different areas of those tentacles went out. So I really, it's such a weird path. I mean, I don't know where you want to start, but it was such a weird path getting there.
I want to start with and if I'm not mistaken, with the 8-track that you got on Union Turnpike. There you go. So, all right, let's go.
So this was a really interesting pivotal moment in that it wasn't Union Turnpike. It was Casino Boulevard. It was at a store called Wainwright's. Okay, and my mom would drag me along while she would just do her shopping for whatnot. It was kind of like a job lot kind of place, as I recall. And she'd park me in front of a bin of 8-tracks. and I didn't really know anybody. I recognized certain names like, the Beatles or whatnot. And they're all 25 cents, right? And I'm leafing through, and it was never to buy. It was just, you sit here and stare at 8 tracks. Okay. And one day my mom's like, why don't you get one? And and I pull out one, and it's the Beatles, and the Beatles were $1. She's like, well, yeah. How about that one? The guy over there, he's holding a guitar.
Now hold that close so we can see which one that is.
Why don't you get that one?
Okay.
Jeff Beck and the Yardbirds, the shapes of things. You got, he's holding a guitar. My mom said, I put you all through music lessons on piano, went nowhere. How about we try guitar? How about that? Maybe you're interested, right? So, bring it home, put it on. I don't understand what I'm listening to. It's so outside of what I was inundated with at the time, which was all just top 40, late 70s.
So we're talking the Knack, and it's like power pop on the radio.
Oh, we're talking like James Taylor and Elton John and Christopher Cross and
okay, yacht rock,
and some of the light rock or some of this like regular like mainstream 70s rock or whatnot. I mean, growing up was American Top 40, Casey Kasem, Long Distance Dedication, right?
And Norman Greenbaum.
Right? Spirit in the Sky, right? It was all of that. So, it was, and mind you, I'm six. It was 1977, right? And I bring this 8-track home, and it's a little bit like I don't really have the capacity or the experience to really understand it, but it's 8-track. You leave it in, it just keeps playing over. It's an endless. It's a Mobius strip of music, right? So, and it starts to permeate. It starts to bubble up into this energy, and I don't know what it is. And it's coming from the guitar. It's coming from the sparks coming out of Jeff Beck's AC30, his Vox AC30, and it's starting to like be this thing that is so I don't know.
It just talks to you.
It's just starting to like really like get it, like it like passes like the first layer and the third layer and the fifth layer, and it's like it's close to the bone now, right? Yeah. And that got me onto really trying to understand, like, where, like, how come this music isn't on the radio? Like, what's going, like, where are we disconnected here? Because this is amazing, right? 1981, so a few years later.
A couple of years later, 5 years later.
NEW 1027, they're rebroadcasting the Yardbirds live at the Anderson Theater. That show that they did in March of 1968.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there like just so giddy, so excited about this moment. It felt like a moment.
It's as if you were at a live show, just like experiencing this.
I'm experiencing like new Yardbirds I've never heard before, with a new guitarist, with this guy called Jimmy Page, right?
Mm-hmm.
On lead guitar. But I have to make a choice, because I know I have to record it, and I only have an 8-track player. I don't have a cassette player. I have to choose an existing 8-track that I have to overwrite, which felt so dirty. It felt so sacrilegious. And so I decided, you know what? I love Sonny and Cher, but the Sonny and Cher 8-track got overwritten with the Yardbirds on that fateful March of 1981. And never looked back. Yeah.
That's it. I got you, babe.
Yeah, exactly.
No
Uh,
more.
so the amazing energy that came out from this first 8-track just sent me on a journey. I mean, this is
That's all Yardbirds there and back
it's
here.
all Yardbirds or Yardbirds related. I mean,
And
I don't want to scare people, when it comes to like record. There's like record buyers, there's record collectors, and then there's record fanatics, right? So at last count, as of this recording, I have 1,012 unique pieces of Yardbirds vinyl.
wow.
Okay,
Wow.
that's and that doesn't even talk about my duplicates, which are sitting on the floor behind me.
Right. Well, you mailed me a beautiful box with this Roger the Engineer half speed master here.
Master, yeah.
I mean, this is I listened to it this morning to prep for this interview here for this little chat.
Nice. No, that's a good one. I was just involved in the new box set that's coming out very soon. There was a little licensing issue we had to deal with, but it should be dropping, I think, in June, maybe around Record Store Day. I'm not sure exactly.
I think they're pushing for late June.
Yeah.
And so I want to know, what was your involvement, because this is a 2 LP 3 CD poster 45 booklet. It's a beautiful looking set. Some of the there's a limited edition run that's autographed.
Yes.
And so what was your involvement with this box? Because you've been involved not just with this box set, but there was a recent book about Keith Relf that was put out. And there you go. And
so along the way, I have discovered, and you find this in your, in your various lanes that you drive down, that you can't grow in this ecosystem without interacting with people. You can't just throw money into it and be involved. You engage with people.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who's like a notorious recluse, that was a little hard for me.
Last year must have been fantastic for you.
Well, right. So
only dealing with people on computer.
Exactly, right. So this wonderful author, David French, he reached out to me through mutual contacts, and we talked about some of the ways that I could contribute to this book, mostly through pictures that I have in my collection of unique and uncirculated photography of the band. I did the same for the drummer of the band, for Jim McCarty,
mm-hmm.
for his book and his release, and I've done the same for for Greg Russo in his book on the Yardbirds. I actually edited the book and also contributed pictures and whatnot. And through that collaboration, contributed tracks for the Glimpses, very rare assortment of unreleased tracks that had been circulating in various quality until that time.
Now, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, you contributed something to this one as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Was this the toothpaste commercial?
The toothpaste commercial, yes. The McLean's toothpaste commercial. All
right. So, but we're going to circle back to Roger the Engineer and your involvement on that. While we're on the toothpaste commercial, so you end up with, it's a reel-to-reel? Like, I want to know how what is this notorious and infamous toothpaste commercial that appeared on this record here? And how did you come about getting it?
So the toothpaste commercial is actually a little bit of a bummer story, okay? The bummer story was that it came up in an ad on eBay, the vinyl for McLean's toothpaste artists that had written tracks for promoting this whatever toothpaste, and the beauty of it was that the ad was written up Yardbirds with the, big gap in the middle. And as a nutcase, I'm searching for Yardbirds any which way I can.
Right. Now give me a time. What are we talking about here? Roughly how many years ago? What year is this?
Oh, probably about 15 years ago.
Okay, so it's pretty early on in the history of eBay.
Yeah, it is. And because of that, and because of my experiences up to that time, I figured I've got this. I've got this. This is where ego just ruins everything, right? Because I'm like, man, I mean, I'm just gonna go high. I'm just gonna throw out that number that no one's gonna hit, and I'm gonna win this. And that's just gonna be it, right? I threw out, I don't know, whatever it was, like $400 or something, right, for a one-sided toothpaste record with misspelled Yardbirds in the ad, right?
Right.
What could go wrong? Well, I lost. I lost, and I lost my mind. I was like, no, this is not how this is supposed to end. I reached out to the guy immediately. I reached out to the seller immediately afterwards. I said, listen. What can we do? I didn't win the record. What can we do? He's like, well, pay me $50 and I'll make you, I'll record it for you. Perfect. Let's do that. That's the source of the recording.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this very same thing happened again, except it would play out a little different this time. On the newest Yardbirds, this is a good tie-in because on the newest Yardbirds box set, the Yardbirds also did a track for Great Shakes milkshakes. Now, everyone that I have spoken to from that era who plunked down their dime for Great Shakes milkshakes all almost immediately spit it out. It was disgusting.
All right.
It was like chocolate sawdust or
dirty water.
Right. Didn't matter. But another, this time it was a 10-inch, came out from Ogilvy and Mather. Ogilvy and Mather was a big media company, did promotions and whatnot. And they pressed a 10-inch of their artists, and on it are Dusty Springfield and Tokens and all that. And so this record, as it turns out, contained an alternate version of the advertisement
for the milkshake
circulated.
Right. And
what was interesting is I didn't even realize that. It was actually David French.
Right.
He's listening to it and he's like, this is not the same version that we all know of the Great Shakes commercial. And so this wound up as a an addition on the the bonus, this 3 oddities and anomalies for the set, and that was and those are the kinds of things that the collectors are really hungry for. I mean, we're talking about a band that started in 1963, wrapped in 1968. In all, they were really only around for about 3.5 years.
Right.
And so it's so unusual in this day and age for everyone who's done all their excavating and all their tape transfers and all their oh, I forgot about this box of tapes under my dresser or whatnot from when I was a kid. Like, a lot of those have really come to surface. So it's really hard to find new material, new things people haven't heard before. So it's exciting that we're able to do this for this new box set. And not only that, the first time that is getting a proper transfer, okay? So a lot of the CDs and reissues that you hear from a lot of these older bands come from safety copies. So these master tapes, these are reels that are made from off the master tapes, okay?
Right. So
they're good, but they're not masters, okay? Through some real legwork, in soul searching, somebody really came up with the proper masters for the Roger the Engineer album. And it sounds spectacular. The original member, the original bassist for the band, Paul Semel Smith, he oversaw the remastering process, and he says this is like a time machine. This is what it was sitting in the studio, back in the UK, being with the band, and it kind of brought up the memories for him. And he writes about it, and there's some nice essays contained within the set as well.
And you edited some of the essays, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So we had contributions from Wayne Kramer, and Thurston
Brother Wayne,
and David French, and so, but I put my Queens College English hat on, for the sake of I'm a little OCD when it comes to English, so I made sure that it was edited properly. Which I'm sorry if I'm going out of order here, but when this presented itself, I could not resist the
Queens College Yardbirds flyer. Yeah,
college Yardbirds, right? With the Good Rats, who apparently I've heard were terrible.
Good Rats are a great band who should have been a lot bigger than they were. I mean, they never really made it beyond Long Island,
right?
But these guys were talented.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. It's just I took classes in Colden Center, so it was the whole thing is just very bizarre.
Comes
really.
Full circle here.
Full circle, exactly. So that said, I also photographed lots of the covers and labels of 12-inch and 7-inch for inclusion into the booklet to kind of give it a better historical context.
Mm-hmm.
It's always important, when you look at a record like Roger the Engineer that has been such a staple, a cornerstone of what the Yardbirds were, encapsulating that diversity of sound and new ideas, really. And to think about, it came out in the UK. Well, it also came out in Venezuela and France and Italy and and all these other countries. And here I'm looking at it's been photographed for the box set, but you got the picture disc 45 EPs from India and from New Zealand and from the UK, and it's just like all of a sudden it just kind of makes it all kind of come to life a little bit,
right? Exactly. So now, all right, how do these people come to find you? I mean, obviously you've been doing this for, seriously, as a serious Yardbirds collective for, I mean, let's go certainly 25 years, if not closer to 30. But I mean, the meat and potatoes has probably been the last 25, certainly.
It's funny because as we started our vinyl journeys before eBay, before internet, before email, before any of these methods of really communicating and establishing those relationships. I mean,
but you had to look at Goldmine with a magnifying glass and make the long distance phone calls to Europe, to Germany, to England.
Right. I mean, it's like, hey, what's Les Harris got this week? Like.
Right. I remember buying a lot of stuff from this guy in Germany, Werner Vingen.
Oh,
okay. And he had some great Ramon stuff. Yeah.
Oh, Thomas Funk and Princeton Records and all of those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it was such a holy magazine.
Yeah. I mean, who could get out to the record store first and get it, it would come out Tuesdays, and you had to be there at 5 to 10 before the record store opened up to grab the copy, to go through, and it was, oh my God, with the pen, circling everything with the pen.
Circling, folding down the top corner of the page, come back to the whole bit, right? And so, the sort of really interesting part about that experience that we don't even think about today is that, okay, so I want this record. And what do I got to do? I got to write a check or get a money order. Put it in the mail.
Hope that the guy sends it.
Right. How do I know? I mean, I'm the first guy to
Right.
Send money for it,
Right.
right? Or, you know, when the guy says long list, send SASE, right?
Remember? Oh, yeah.
The self-addressed stamped envelopes, right? It's such a different world of collecting. I mean, I don't want to sound old and outdated or whatever. It just seems like that was like first generation or maybe second generation. I'm not gonna know. But it was such a different culture in that you really had to be out. You had to hit the shops. You had to go make those connections with people.
Hit the record, the record fairs, the
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the most impressionable record shows I was ever at was in Montvale, New Jersey. Okay.
Mhm.
And we're talking about it's a January or February. It's I don't know, -8 degrees outside. I took a red and tan, okay, from out of Port Authority or wherever it was.
Wait,
And
that's not a beer and a scotch.
not a beer and scotch.
Okay.
This is
Different red and tan.
red and tan, like kind of like Greyhound lines,
Right.
bus out in the middle of nowhere to go first hike 4 miles to get to the place in freezing cold.
Right. Before GPS.
Oh, forget it, right? Yeah. And so we get there and it's that gateway into discovery.
Yeah.
It's that leafing through bins at that time were not only like it gave you that first like insight into like all the things that you want that you don't even know that like existed yet.
Right.
So like it's not only the first that I'm seeing it, but it's also like the most important thing that I need to have right now. I mean, it's just
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. When you go to a record fair and it's great piece after great piece, how do you make that decision?
how do you how do
And
you make it? You make it. I'll tell you exactly how you make that decision. Because it's another $6.90 to get on the bus back home, and then it's another $2 to get on the IRT back to the INV, back to and then you got to get on the bus. You back out your fare home, and that's how you know how much money you have to spend.
basically, yeah.
Food didn't
Right.
matter, right? And there was this guy. There was this one guy, and he's like, he's running around the place. He wasn't a dealer. But
Mhm.
he's running around the place and he's got these 4 Yardbirds EP picture sleeves I've never seen before. They're from France,
Mhm.
which might as well have been from Mars. I hadn't.
You just didn't know.
I didn't know. There was no method of knowing these things.
Right.
And I'm like chasing him through and up and down. I'm trying to find him, and he's trying to sell them to dealers, and I'm trying to find him, and I didn't feel like worthy to talk to him, but I watched him interact with another dealer he's trying to pawn these 4 mega rare, at least we thought at the time, sleeves off, and it just left like this incredible impression of need and want
Right.
and value and search and hunt. Right, all of it just sort of came together like all at the same time.
And that's a constant theme that runs through this program is wants versus needs. And with record collectors,
Right.
the wants are needs and the needs are wants. They are one and the same.
And there's this weird middle, at least that I have found
Mhm.
at least in the Yardbirds ecosystem, and that's in order to establish the right to buy certain pieces, you have to be willing to pay any price.
You have to be willing to one more. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, you have to be willing to pay whatever price it is.
Okay.
Well, there's 2 avenues. One is sometimes a seller has rare items, but in order to get to those items, you got to first buy some of the fluff in the front row. Right?
So there's sort of prerequisites.
Yeah, you can't just aim for the bleachers.
top shelf before you
Yeah.
get
No, son, you can't touch those yet. You know, we got to first establish that, you know,
you're legit, you're serious. Yeah.
Right. So here's some, you know, decoys, you know.
Right. You gotta grease the wheel a little.
Okay, so now I see, you know, what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, it's a good home. Then okay, now we can talk about, you know, what's on the upper shelf. That so that happened. That's happened a few times, but the one of the more interesting interactions of that nature was buying an acetate. I don't know how familiar, you know, the viewers are with acetates, but they are part of the record making process at the very early stages prior to becoming vinyl releases, used for, you know, testing levels or you know, the proper cuts and mixes were used and that they sound right. Anyway, so they're just very sort of disposable, you know, very few copies are ever really made, but they're made out of metal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is
and they
very
smell
cool.
amazing.
And they smell like, you know, like God, right?
It's so true. I mean, I could sit there and huff acetate.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And so I bought this acetate on eBay back in 1999. And it was the most I'd ever spent on a record. But it was just one of those, this has to happen. You know. And I remember I got it from the guy, and I was a little, I don't know, not disappointed, but like it was an acetate of the Yardbirds live at the Anderson Theater show from 1968.
Mm-hmm.
And he sent it to me in this record,
just plain brown cardboard.
It says at the top left, it says Virgin Dance UK compilation, Johnny Hates Jazz Dance pre-release 12-inch. Okay. And I'm like, seriously? Do you care so little about this? I mean, you just charged me $1,400 for this record, and you're gonna send it in a Johnny Hates Jazz, like, handwritten whatever piece of junk, like, sleeve?
And so did you put it on to check and make sure that it's not Johnny Hates Jazz?
Well, so I put it on. I'm like, this better not be Johnny Hates Jazz, and I just got, you know, jazz out of, you know, a ton of money.
$1,400.
And then something weird happens. And I don't remember exactly how I made the connection, but I started talking to the guy about what else you got, because it's always like, you know, if you got this, what else you got? Just have this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we start to get into a conversation about, you know, some of the other items he has, but he's not really telling me everything. But he tells me his name, right? And his name is Calvin Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, Calvin Hayes, British accent, okay. And I do a little bit of research because, you know, there was some internet at that time, and eBay obviously and whatnot.
You had the little chipmunk on the wheel powering it up.
You know, I'm chasing this squirrel. And Calvin Hayes, the guy I just bought this from, was in Johnny Hates Jazz. Okay, like that's he was the guy, but that wasn't where it ended. Calvin Hayes is the son of Mickey Most,
the producer,
the
right?
producer of the Yardbirds. Yay!
Wow!
And now I'm just like, oh my god! Now I've really like.
So you struck gold.
So I call him up and get his number, and we're talking. And he's telling me stories about his dad and working not only with the Yardbirds, but with other epic label artists like Terry Reid. And he tells me this great story because, as lots of people know, Terry Reid was slated to be the lead singer of
Led Zeppelin.
Right? And And there's all kinds of stories about, what exactly transpired at that time that he didn't wind up in that role. And he was actually the one to recommend Robert Plant.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't just come out of thin air. That came from Terry Reid saying,
Right.
I'm taken, go talk to Robert Plant. But it's not exactly that. And it turns out that there was a scheduled rehearsal put together through Peter Grant. Now, Peter Grant worked, the famous Led Zeppelin manager, worked with Mickey Most and managed Yardbirds too. People don't know that either. They managed both bands. And it was a late night, Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones and maybe Tim Rose or somebody else who was available at the time to play drums, and they invited Terry to come over to kind of jam and try out and see what would happen. Terry doesn't show. Terry got plastered at a bar. He was a little notorious alcoholic.
Right.
And never showed. And part of me thinks maybe that's a little bit part of the story, why he never quite, was, these guys are serious and this guy's not, maybe, whatever it might be. But that didn't stop me from becoming a notorious Terry Reid collector either. That
bang, bang.
Bang, bang, right? So Sonny and Cher coming back again. It's just been it's been an interesting journey in the sense that I love music. I love all kinds of music. I'm sort of pegged a Yardbirds guy, but and I don't really know how to convey this without it coming out weird, but I don't, for all the vinyl that I've collected and continue to collect about the Yardbirds, it's no longer about, it's about chasing those grails. It's about really finding those pieces that you never knew existed, you never conceived to exist. I mean, I have pieces that people don't even know that, were ever pressed from.
So, all right. So that's a question now. Are there things that exist that you never got your hands on, that you're looking for the grails?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, off the top of my head, I can tell you that there's and this is going to sound very esoteric, but there's a solid center 7-inch version of Keith Relf's promo 45 on red vinyl with the promo letter in the picture sleeve, yada, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, all that you see out there are the, large center, large hole. Right. I had seen one picture of a solid center, and I've been chasing that for 20 years.
And to no avail.
No avail.
Nothing.
There are some lesser known grails out there, like the New Zealand version of the Scene 65 comp that the Yardbirds are on.
Mm-hmm.
The Canadian version of Blow Up. I have every other iteration of Blow Up that the Yardbirds, were on the soundtrack for.
Right.
I mean, but for some reason the Canadian one just eludes me. I mean, it's just there's always things, and then there's always upgrades. There's always reasons to just keep spending money on what I personally believe to be the most important band, really, of that era, and not only just because they launched careers of Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page. Take any one of them, and it's amazing to say you had them in your band, but all three of them,
right,
and the diversity of the material that was produced from out of that, it's just I mean, you can't make it up. But what you really can't make up, reading the stories of what happened with the band, is that they lived the entire Spinal Tap existence. Every time they had a hit, a guitarist would leave.
Right.
Every time they started getting a little traction, their manager would take off. I mean, it was just like they couldn't buy a break.
Total comedy of errors.
Really. And so,
Now, going from the Yardbirds, now you also at one point had a monstrous Zeppelin collection.
That is correct. At one point I had one of the largest Led Zeppelin collections, probably, I'd say in the United States for sure. And that was a little bit of, that's madness. A Led Zeppelin collector is a mad person. I mean, mad, just insane. It's a very cutthroat community in the Led Zeppelin circles.
More so than Yardbirds.
Way more so than the Yardbirds. Oh my God. I, to this day, get emails and texts and whatnot from people who are like, this guy screwed me over and that guy screwed me over, and we're all after the same things, and and they don't, how did my picture of my item leak out? I only shared it with like 2 people, and it's very protective, it's very neurotic, but it's very passionate.
I mean, it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where you have groups of people fighting over the same piece.
Oh, cutthroat. I mean, this guy hates that guy and that guy hates it. I tend to be friends with everybody, which is really weird to be in the middle, but
you're a straight shooter. I mean,
Yeah, I don't judge. I mean, I just, I'm an ear. I'm the I've been called a Led Zeppelin collector psychologist.
That's a book. That there is a book.
Oh, I know it. I know it. I mean, just before coming on the call here, I got a text from another collector friend of mine, and he wants to know from Led Zeppelin, is this particular release, is this red label original, or was the original black label? He wants to know. And it's funny because I haven't, through my own 12-step program of weaning off Led Zeppelin, I don't own any more Led Zeppelin. I can't touch it. If I start it.
Yeah.
And so, but I've amassed a tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise in that band as well. And so I get asked all the time, have you seen this? What's this worth? What are the different iterations? And I've owned almost all of them.
Well, you're the guy who, when you're at a record store and you see a Led Zeppelin on the wall, you're pulling it out and you're reciting the matrix number before you even look at the matrix number.
I know this one should have a crossed out 4, and this one, this was a super hype label, or it was a Warner Bros label, whatever, all the different, I mean,
the idiosyncrasies within the sleeve. Oh, this one should have this in the corner and it doesn't.
All the misspellings, like Misty Mountain Hop for many years, was actually listed as Misty Mountain Top. Things like, they had Peter Grant as producer on labels. They had, the feather of Robert Plant's symbol is backwards on some of the labels. I mean, all the minutia of some of these things is astounding. But that's part of what, when you get into the weeds, it can be overwhelming, but when you're in here, there's some really very cool things, right? Because there are stories that are unknown, and some of the mystery of that is very attractive, right? Like, for example, trademark equality.
All right, stop for a second.
Oh, please, yes.
How the hell is it that you just reach back and grab exactly what you want without having to thumb through it?
This is
because nothing is out jogged where it's like, oh, I set a few of them aside because I know I'm going to refer to this. It's like, no, okay, I want to talk about this one, and you just plug. How?
I'm telling you, this is another limb. Okay.
All right.
Scary, right?
All right.
Scary stuff.
I mean, that's like a magic trick right there.
I mean, I'm embarrassed I had to look, So Trademark Equality was a very famous 70s bootleg label, of which they did quite a number of Yardbirds pressings. They were, in fact, one of the first, which is another astounding thing, to interview a member of the band for inclusion in part of their bootleg. Right? So in 1970, part of the More Golden Eggs bootleg,
right,
they interviewed Keith Relf, the lead singer, and they sat down with him and they recorded him, and they transcribed it as a 3-page insert as part of the bootleg.
Wow.
So that you have Keith Relf walking you through the live tracks on this bootleg
On a
record.
bootleg, right?
On a bootleg, right? I mean, Keith didn't get a dime. I mean, maybe he got high. I don't know, whatever. I mean, he got nothing off of it, right? But they treated him right, and every so often they would do something astounding, and press records like, you know, these like gorgeous speckled green, you know,
Yeah.
two pressings. I mean, these are so not collectible, but
Sought after.
You know,
Yeah.
these are the kinds of things that, you know, and it's one thing to have sort of rare colors and anomalies, but when you pair it with you know, a Yardbirds or Hendrix or whatnot, you know, a Zeppelin, it just sends it through the roof, really.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's so all of this really builds off of the whole culture. Okay, it builds off of a whole story of how it all really began, right? And you're, I don't even know if you remember the Music Box.
That was a couple of, I remember when it was not, it wasn't the Music Box, it was Breakdown,
which then became
Spin-off. Right. So I remember Breakdown, I remember Spin-off, but I don't remember the Music Box. But I know I could tell you where it was. 168th and Union Turnpike.
It was down Union, and let me tell you, it was, you know, across from
St. John's.
Across from St. John's, yeah. And that place was probably more influential than I can even give it credit for. And you know, I had recently been reading Scott Ian's autobiography, and he used to stop there, you know, for the late metal or whatnot. You know, I mean, that place was, and believe it or not, that's where I got my very first single with my own money. Okay, and I guess it was 1982. Joan Jett and the Blackheart.
All right.
Okay, I love rock and roll. I remember, you know, I had just heard it on the American Top 40, and, you know, parents were on the way to go food shopping, and it was right across the street. And I'm like, make a Yui. I'm running in. I'm getting the single, right? You know, and it just really started. Just, you know, once you, there's a difference between being a music listener and appreciator, but once you buy a piece of vinyl, once that becomes part of, you know,
your habit, basically,
your habit and your reflection. It's like, like, who am I now? I'm this, right?
Well, I mean, you're really that Yardbirds 8-track, but
correct, right? And all of it starts to tell a story about your experience and your interests and your passions and your music. And I mean, your music is like everything about you that's sort of nonverbal and really verbal at the same time.
Right.
So, you know, but the experience always starts in a record store, and it started at Music Box. And Music Box was just like, I mean, I'd get off, you know, if I was going to the library down on 188th Street, and, you know, I'd get off the Q68 or whatever it was, Q72, and jump off at the Music Box and hang out in there and get Record Hand.
Yep.
Record Hand.
I know about record, the dust and the
film of records. You know,
but you know, prior, now I think when they moved eventually to Bell Boulevard. But that's when they started burning incense in this store.
You know what? My worst experience was in Bell Boulevard. Okay,
and I can't abide by that.
Do you remember? Were you there? I'm leafing through 45s, and I'm like, oh wow, Van Halen's first single, autographed by the entire band for $5.
Wow.
And I bring it to the counter, and I'm trying to be like really like,
like just put it on a counter. Don't look at it too closely.
Let's not give us too much attention. And the guy, the first thing he says, like, "Oh yeah, sorry, man, somebody scribbled all over it. I don't know. Yeah, $5, you know, right?" And he's like, and he picks it up and he's about to put it in the thing. And he's like, "Oh, Alex, Eddie, Dave,
And Michael.
I can't sell this for $5." I'm like, "Oh, you kidding me? Come on. You were halfway in the bag. You're halfway in the bag. Give it to, come on."
Not cool.
Can't do it. Sorry, man.
Not cool.
Ah, dude.
See now, you know, conversely, back in the 90s, I mean, I would find Ramones autograph records
Yeah.
$4 or
Yeah.
$5. You know,
Yeah.
autographed by, you know, I got the Too Tough to Die, which was autographed by Richie, because he was the drummer then,
Yeah.
with the promo picture inside. Oh, there's the phone. Check this out. With, you know, with the and I can probably lean over. Wait, I won't be as suave as you, but there you have it.
Oh, look at that.
And that's what I ended up with. Now, you know, of course, Dee Dee signed by Joey and Joey signed by Dee Dee, but Johnny and Richie were okay. But that ended up inside the sleeve of the autograph record. I got a another one, which Ramones? I was at one of the later ones. I don't even remember the names anymore. Also autographed on the back.
I got you an autograph. I think it was "Do You Want to Dance?" With the black and white cover, and it signed it in the corners. I got
Yep.
it with it.
That's up beyond view of Zoom, right up there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so now when we were in high school, you were pretty much listening, collecting a lot of Depeche Mode also.
So high school was really, I was looking for something harder, and whether it was through, like, you know, techno, or I was listening to a lot of Sex Pistols, I just needed something with a little bit more visceral act, right? I became a punk music mule for a particular teacher at my high school.
Go down to Free Bings and get me some Sham 69. Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Anyway, but that was, so that was sort of an interesting sort of transition to trying to figure out, like, what I really, and it turned out I really like all of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I had a much larger point I can't remember now, but yeah, you know, high school was a lot of Pure Platters, because they had really the sort of newer
punk, and
you know, it wasn't like, you know, just Lower Manhattan and Village, where I was just sort of looking for oldies. I wanted something a little bit newer. You know, some of the newer releases. That's where I found the great Warner Brothers compilation CDs. You know, the Just Say Yo and Just Say Yes and Just Say Now and Just Say, you know, that whole sampler series, which was, oh my God, fantastic.
Right. I mean, it's just a lot of new music on disc, and, you know, all from great bands. Yeah, Pure Platters. I think I got every single Husker Du album that I ever bought at Pure Platter. They were always stocked with Husker Du.
Yeah. And there was another. Did they have two shops, like one around the corner from the other, or was that a different store? I can't remember.
No, Pure Platters, from what I remember, was just one shop.
Okay. All right.
But I mean, they closed quite a while ago.
Did they?
Yeah, they're gone. I mean, all the shops that we used to go to are now gone.
I mean, Subterranean.
Generation is still open. You know, that's if for all your punk needs, it's Generation. But Subterranean, oh boy.
Subterranean, Revolver, Bleecker Bob's.
All right, what was Revolver good for?
Was Revolver good for?
Yep. Revolver always got the newest bootlegs.
Oh yeah, of course.
On CD and on vinyl. I mean, almost all the Jane's Addiction bootlegs.
Yeah, that's correct.
Were procured at Revolver. Upstairs and right next to it was Venus, and on the other side was It's Only Rock and Roll.
Well, right. I mean, it was just, and now Revolver got busted by the feds, or somebody did.
They kept getting shut down for bootlegs, but they had great bootlegs.
Oh my. But it was, you know, it was different. It wasn't, you know, the New York shops had a different vibe, and I'm sure it's different today. today it's a little bit more interactive, not like, it was a little more brusque back then.
Yeah, but
My
like you
experience.
said, it was a matter of knowing the own. I mean, when
Right.
Subterranean was open, I was in there literally every week
Mhm.
talking to, and oh yeah, I wouldn't even have to ask him. He'd see me walk down the steps, open the door, and stuff would come out. Oh yeah, we got this way.
Right.
The Ramones and Richard Hell and Dead Boys and oh my.
Yeah. 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 No, it was that was just a totally different time, and it's exciting, really. I think that we're seeing this resurgence. I mean, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I'm excited because you can now buy preamplifiers with phono inputs on them again because they
Right.
disappeared.
Yeah.
They
You
just
couldn't get those.
you couldn't find a thing to plug your turntable into, right?
Right.
So it's really um, it's it's showing itself, at least certainly on the Yardbird side. For all of these Yardbirds releases, they're flying out the door.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about the signed copy of this box set. It's done. I mean, it hasn't even hit the floor, and it's already sold. The signed copies are sold out.
Right. Right.
You want a signed copy, you can find one on eBay for $300.
And Face was 150 maybe.
I don't even know what I don't even
I
know
mean,
what
if the
price
the
that.
the regular release is, regular release unsigned is, I guess, what did I call it? Face or book value,
Yeah,
whatever retail
yeah,
price, about 100. I think, I've
yeah.
seen it for
A
about
little bit less.
85, 80,
Yeah, it's a
85.
pound. Yeah, right. But it's just it's good to see that there's a hunger for it. There's an excitement about it.
Yeah.
There's a number of other releases coming up after this one that I'll probably be involved with as well. But I think it's great that it didn't that it didn't just go nowhere. That it
Hmm.
didn't just that's nice. Yeah.
Right, right. Now, are you buying, aside from Yardbirds
Yeah.
and related, are
Right.
you buying new music or old music on vinyl?
Um, I buy. Um, that's a good question. On vinyl, yeah. I mean, I've been really digging some of like um the Riding Easy releases.
Oh, those brown acid
Yeah, Brown Ass.
comps, those are great.
That series is just absolutely phenomenal. I
I
think,
kind of I lapsed. I think 9 might be the last one that I got, and they might be up to like 11 or 12 now.
but I would say it's more, but along those lines, it's more comps at this stage. If I'm
Mhm.
buying vinyl, this is probably, and this is probably dating a little bit here, but this is probably one of the newer vinyl release.
I was with you when you got that. We
I
got that in North Carolina.
I beat you to it.
You did. He had one copy.
One copy.
I ended up getting a kind of somewhat shoot up Ace of Spades reissue that day, but
But the funny thing is that what I didn't really understand, or I watched some of your other episodes. This is a gatefold, one slit. I open this with one slit. Records come out. I don't know what's in here. I'm not going to know what's in here. It
yep,
doesn't matter what's in here.
doesn't matter. See,
Okay.
now you've got crazy schools of thought on that. Those that just rip open. When I was talking to Mem a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
His theory, he carefully peels off the hype sticker,
Right.
slides out the slides the record out of the cellophane, saves the hype sticker, looks at. I mean, that's work already. It's easier for me and for you. Just keep it pristine, slice it. I mean, now what do you use? Do you scrape it against your jeans? Do you use one of these like itty bitty razor tips over here?
Well, so I use because I do a lot of music equipment repair. I've got a lot of I use a fine screwdriver with a
Okay,
sharp edge.
all right,
So just kind of nice and neat, and
yeah. I mean, you really got to be careful because you don't want to slice the inner sleeve.
Don't want to slice the inner sleeve. Let me tell you something. In broadening this for just a second, one of the most challenging things at times is when you receive your record in the, your record mailer, when they use too much tape, or they've got it like taped inside the mailer to the cardboard back. They make it so that unless you have a surgical kit, you're going to ruin the record you just bought.
Right. There's no way to get this out.
There's no way to get it out. I mean, because if you just like that, you don't know. I have literally cut mint records in half, opening them, not knowing.
Right, not knowing where the record begins and the bubble wrap and the cardboard ends. Yeah,
they didn't put any PVC. It's just record and 2 flaps and a piece of tape, and I'm just like, oh sure, bam,
right, boom, and that's it.
Right. And I've got a new gatefold on my record.
Oh, that's so bad. I was mailed. I had ordered a couple of Lou Reed New York promo posters a couple of weeks ago, and it took a hair under a month for them to arrive. All right. Yeah. Within the United States. I mean, we're talking, maybe they were mailed from St. Louis or Illinois, somewhere, in middle America to get to New York. All right. Yeah. Why? Because the guy put 2 Lou Reed posters into a pizza box. All right. Like an empty pizza. Now, it was a brand new pizza box, so at least there were no grease stains on the Lou Reed posters. But I get this, and the pizza box is basically folded in half. All right. So now there's a big chunk, a big dent in both posters. The guy made good on it. I said, listen, you don't have to refund the entire thing, but give me a substantial refund. He refunded, I got a nice amount back, and 2 Lou Reed posters that have chunks in them. So
whoa, dominoes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on, but I mean, when mailing this stuff, just think about it a little, please.
Yeah, no, really. And there's a relationship between the value of the record and the packaging you get. I get $20 records that are like box in a box, and I get $500 records that are like,
it's like they'll put a stamp on it and mail it.
Yeah. In a bubble mailer, right? And it's just, oh my God.
Right. I mean, I've heard that Amazon has been horrible. I heard they're very hit or miss.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will not buy from Amazon because they'll take a record, put it in a box, and just tape the box. So the record is, moving, getting shipped and just banging and I mean, how different? Put it in a record, get a record mailer. Hello, Amazon, get a record mailer. Now, all right, so we're gonna move off of records for a bit. Now, you also, and then we'll start wrapping up because we're on like just about an hour or so. You also repair gear. You also build effect boxes and effect pedals. You build like these Frankenstein machines and.
Yeah, I'm always busy, right? So it's always about music for me. It's always about music. I mean, for better or worse, like actually the last year during this COVID, I've been co-producing an album, learning a lot about what production is really about and how much of an influence production really puts into the final product of what you're listening to. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I'm way oversimplifying it, but everything flows through the producer. It doesn't end at the band, and so it's such an integral component. And I learned more than I can't listen to any song anymore the same way. I'm picking out hi-hats, I'm picking out bass lines, I'm picking out scene changes, I'm picking out floor toms, intros, turnarounds, choruses, whatever. It's all broken up in different ways that I've never heard music before. It's amazing.
So now listening to a song that you've heard dozens and dozens of times, now that you've had your foot in the production pool, are there songs that you hear and you're like, they should have just, would have sounded cool had they done this, had they done that?
Absolutely. I'll drive to work. I'm yelling at the radio. I'm like, are you kidding me? That organ is way too loud and it's sitting right in the pocket with the singer. There's no business for it to be there. It doesn't add anything. I mean, and then there are other songs, sort of like 10cc songs where I'm like, oh my God. you have no idea the mastery of this like sort of middle of the road, song that like people were just like, oh, that's nice. But from a production value,
Right.
it's like, oh my God. And then you start to like really appreciate things like what the Bee Gees did, which is right.
No, yeah, yeah.
You know, it's such a new skill or avenue with which to approach music with, and it can make bad worse and good better. I don't know, or
Okay, yeah.
maybe flip things all the way around. But so that's been something that I've been doing a lot of, as well as like you said, I do a lot of music gear building, repairing, vintage gear. I love vintage gear. I love all of the big box delays and big modular synthesizers. I built a wall of synthesizer modules that are just you lose hours, days in front of this thing creating sounds. And
That stuff is
just
mind blowing. It's like when you're in that room, it's like you're in a rocket ship.
Yeah, and that's it's funny you say that exact words, and I'll make this a quick story. I was at home working remote one day, and I had this movie on just as noise in the background. It's called The Row. Now some sorority row girls around. Right?
Okay.
And so, but it came to this one scene that this girl finally like gets into the bar, and she's about to take the drugs she shouldn't and drink the drink she shouldn't, and everything sort of slows down.
Mm-hmm.
And this song comes in, and I'm like, what the hell is this? This is amazing. This has nothing to do with this movie. This is amazing. And I'm like waiting for this nonsense movie to finish, like to catch the credits and see the listing of the songs, and I'm like pausing and rewinding and pausing.
They have an app for that. It's called Shazam, and you can just
oh really? I don't know.
You can just get Shazam and push the button, and if you're getting like advice from me about how to use a smartphone, you're in bad shape. But yes, you can Shazam that. Anyway, so you find the credits, and
I go through the credits, and I pull up this one on YouTube. No, it's not that one. No, it's not that one. No, it's not that one. And I can't even find it anywhere. And finally, I find this one, and it's this artist. His name is Mark Stoney, and I find it on Bandcamp. I don't even find it on YouTube. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the song. And I'm like, okay, well, I haven't really bought anything new in a long time, and this song was great. I don't know what else is on here, but and I plunked down the, he's in the UK, and I plunked down the, 10 euros or whatever it might be, and Mark emails me back. He's like, oh, dude, thanks for buying my record. Like, this is great. Like, how did you find me? I'm like, well, actually, I found you, because you're on The Row. And he's like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's a long time ago. I recorded that song in Little Five Points in Atlanta. What?
Like down a block from you.
I said, that's down the block from me. Are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, we came to the States. We dropped a couple of tracks. It was in this like house club hip hop kind of studio, but it worked out, and recorded a couple of tracks. And he sends me like the raw masters because he's like, hey, you like it? Here, here's the rest of it, right? And it's just like this hilarious thing. And so I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit into music too, and I take a picture of my rig, and he's like, dude, that's like a freaking spaceship. I don't know what you live in right there, but I could literally fly out of the universe with what you just built there. Anyway, so that's how that whole thing started.
That's hysterical. No, but it really is like it's like this thing from 2001.
Yeah,
this Kubrick-esque like just piece.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ben, thank you so much for taking the time for, it's not like we don't text all the time, but, for actually coming on the show and really just talking about your history, about the entire Yardbirds collection you've spent over 30 years procuring. A message to all those that are watching: don't forget that if you like the show, make sure you like the show, like you have to hit the like, subscribe to the show, and leave comments for Ben and for myself, and we will make sure to answer those. We'll leave Ben's information if he wants us to. He's reclusive, and but if he wants, if he wants you to get in touch, maybe you want an effect box built. If he's into that and you're into that, well, we'll make the connection here, and we'll get that done. Only on Your Personal Record. So once again, friends, thank you all so very much for tuning in. Ben, thank you. Now I'll end the recording here, but then we'll hang on.
Sure.
You could say hi to your sister and
Thanks
stuff.
for having me. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you, Ben. And we will sign off now. Your Personal Record, episode number 12. It's a wrap. Thanks, everybody.